Hi everybody, this is Everyday Commentary, and this is a video overview of this knife. And this knife is the SOG Pillar. And generally I like to do my overviews when I just get the item, so it's pretty clean and it hasn't been beat up yet. But this knife came to me and I had a lot of yard work to do, so I took it out and I used it. As I always do, I put on my blue paracord lanyard. It's a fixed blade, so I think you probably need a lanyard. But this knife is part of the SOG's turn to the higher end. It is American made. It runs, well, I don't know if it's American made. It is, let me see. I think it is. I want to say, yep, made in the USA. As you can see, there's some real use on this knife. It runs, as you can now see, S35 VN steel, which is an excellent all-around blade steel. It has micarta handles, which are just wonderful. They are wonderful. They're a good shape. The material is pleasing to the hand. It gives you plenty of grip. I've done batoning with this knife. I've done lots of delimbing with this knife. I've done lots of fire prep with this knife. I did a lot of food prep with this knife. And I can honestly say this knife just took everything I gave it and wanted more. I mean, I have not touched this edge up, and let's see if I can get it on camera. Yeah, so you can see we got some hair there, and it's still shaving sharp, and I batoned significantly with it. I mean, you can see there's scratches right there on the blade. I mean, it's not something that I babied at all, and it just took a beating. It got wedged into a piece of oak so badly that I had to do the reverse batoning to get it out, and it's still perfectly fine. There are a lot of brilliant touches on this knife, and I think this is probably the best sign that we have so far that SOG is really going to go after the high end. And based on how good this knife is, I think the companies that have written SOG off are in for a mighty big surprise. So let's go through and talk about some of the cool features on this knife. So here I'm going to use the Canal Street Cutlery Boys knife as my pointer, simply because it's convenient, and I think this is a cool knife. But let's take a look at some of these things. Okay, so first of all, we have this really cool sort of profile on top. And originally I just thought this was for looks, and it probably is mostly for looks. There are quite a few SOG knives in the lower end of their product line that have this similar profile. But what I did find is that over time, I was able to use that grip, but I could also choke up and really put my thumb on top and sort of press into things. So like when I was making feather sticks, it was very useful to sort of get right on top of it and make those nice tight. Let's see if I can do it from behind the camera. Yeah, you can get make these really nice little curlicues, and obviously they're not supposed to pop off, but doing this from behind the camera is not as easy as it sounds. It's really great, and you can see here that there's a real finger choil, so you can choke way up on the knife. If you're batoning, this offers you a really nice target, so you don't necessarily have to pound through the tip. But eventually, this is only a 5-inch blade or 5 and some inches blade. You're gonna have to go through the tip, and you're gonna, I was very pleased to see how the tip held up. I mean, there's no damage to the tip at all. It just took a beating, and it was great. I'm really, really pleased with that. The jimping here is purposeful, but it's not so bad that you get crazy hot spots over time. These mill marks on the handle are good. They sort of give you a little bit of purchase, but not too much purchase. Nothing beats micarta in terms of handle material, in my opinion. I know that there's people that are going to disagree. Got a little bit of pine sap up there, and it's all fine. The lanyard hole is huge, so you don't have to worry about doing that tiny little fishing line thing. It drives me crazy. If you need to, you can pound it. You can hammer on the back of it because the exposed hang. There's a good index notch here. It's really, really comfortable in the hand. The knife's profile is very thin. This is steel that's just under 3/16 of an inch thick. It's plenty sturdy, but it's very, very compact. So all of those things are really, really great. I like the blade steel. I like the blade shape. I like the handle. I like the handle shape. I like the handle material. If you can notice, let's see if I can get this on camera. right there. So this is actually a tiny bit of letterboxing. And by that, I mean that the blade handle, or that the metal portion of the handle is actually just a smidge bigger than the handle scale. And I originally didn't like that, but over time I realized that if you have one of those knives where this is perfectly flush and it's a fixed blade, when you disassemble the knife, you'll never be able to get it back perfectly flush. And so by having it be a little proud, having this little bit of letterboxing in the handle, it means that you can disassemble and reassemble this knife and clean out the handle if you need to, without having to worry about getting it perfectly aligned. It'll do just fine as it is, and you won't have that like really crisp cutting edge that happens when you disassemble a knife with a flushed back. So lots and lots of really, really smart touches. The flats here are stonewashed, and the grind is a grinder satin. So great stuff. Really like this knife, right? Okay, so we could be done here. Like if it had a shitty sheath, if it had one of those like crappy nylon sheaths, you'd just be like, oh yeah, sheath making's hard. Fixed blades are complicated, bleh. But this is the best part of this knife. As good as all this stuff is that we've gone over, the sheath is awesome. Great retention, no blade rattle whatsoever. There's a little hole here to get rid of excess water if you have it. There's a bunch of mounting points for tech lock. There's a little bit of jimping right here so that you can pop the blade out really super easy and then slide it back in and hear that nice crisp click. It's not exactly the crispest click in the world, but it is definitely a very positive retention. You can feel it. You can actually see how the blade, the handle kind of cups over the index notch here, where this gets thinner on the handle. It gives it a little bit of grip, and that's just fantastic. The lock and attachment point, which is not, I don't believe it's actually a tech lock. This is incredible. This is the best lanyard or best sheath mount I have ever seen. So first of all, it's really stable and thick, so you can slide a regular leather belt through there without having to open it up, and it's fine. But it doesn't jostle around at all. There's a little bit of curve to it. You can see there. There's a little bit of curve to that, and that puts pressure on the belt. So it's easy to get in, but it's hard to move around. Really, really great. I want to say the pivot, the hinge here has a metal pin, so it's riding on a metal pin hinge, which means it's not going to like eventually wear out and break. I mean, it will obviously eventually wear out and break, but if this was just like a little plastic pin or a plastic flap, a bent creased portion of plastic, that would just come undone almost instantly. The real cool part here is that this is something that you can press down and open up almost completely without thought. You just do it and it happens and it works and it's fantastic. And then, you know, once you need to, you can just snap it back into place and you can feel it and get that nice audible click. All right, so that's really cool. Then I noticed this. It has a lockout feature. So if this is on your belt and your belt is buckled to your body, it is virtually impossible for this to fall off, because now you have the lockout feature on the button. So if you're running through the jungle and you hit something, you know, and that happens, it could come open. Never had that happen. It'd be really hard for that to happen because somebody's gonna have to get up underneath the sheath and between the sheath and your body. But suppose it's possible. Well, it doesn't matter because you can just lock it out, and then you're totally 100% done. This is a total one-handed on and one-handed off sheath. It is certainly a blind pull, meaning you don't have to look where you're pulling. And it's the mouth is big enough that if you're in the general vicinity, you're going to be able to do the return blind. It's not like 100% blind. I've only had one sheath, and that was on the GSO7 that was 100% blind on the return. But it's definitely a blind pull, and it's nearly a blind return. So that's really, really great. All of this rides on something that's quite thick or quite thin and close to your body. Last Saturday I did a bunch of yard work, or Sunday I did a bunch of yard work, and I actually fell asleep with the knife in the sheath on my belt. I fell asleep on the couch. And I cannot think of another knife that's that good in the sheath on your belt. Like every other knife that I've had, even the GSO7, which had probably the best sheath I've ever seen, even that knife was big enough and bulky enough that I wouldn't have fallen asleep with it on my belt. This knife I did, and so I just, like I went to the hardware store with it. I totally forgot it was on me. And then when I was walking around, I remember, oh, I have the knife on me. Boom, popped it out. It does exactly what you're supposed to. SOG spent a bunch of time and energy and probably a bunch of money on this sheath, and it totally pays off. I just cannot say enough good stuff about the SOG Pillar. This, to me, is the clarion call for everyone out there who's been like, okay, SOG is just relegated to big box stores and the bargain bins on knife websites. SOG is back, and this knife is why. This knife is awesome. I can't wait to write the review. So when you get a chance, go take a look at the SOG Pillar and get ready for a really good review. I don't know, that might be the best mid-sized fixed blade on the market right now, and that's crazy because Bark River makes some awesome stuff. Survive Knives makes some awesome stuff. Spyderco makes awesome stuff. Cold Steel makes some awesome stuff. I mean, they have a lot of competition. That sheath is incredible. The sheath attachment is incredible. The knife is incredible. The handles are great. I mean, they just did every single thing right. So look for that review coming soon.